Good afternoon, Mr. Mathis.
You too.
As she said, I will read some information into the record, ask you to verify that information, and then I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Marabella because your case has been assigned to him this afternoon.
Yes, ma'am.
So you are Jason Mathis. You're classified as a first felony offender. Your DOC number is 419239. You're here this afternoon before the pardon board because you submitted an application requesting a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in Orleans Parish in October of 1999 to a life sentence for a second-degree murder conviction. Is that information correct, Mr. Mathis?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Marabella?
Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. Mr. Mathis, my name is Tony Marabella. Your case was assigned to me, so I'm going to ask you a few questions. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mathis, how old are you, sir?
I'm 42.
42 years old. And how long have you been in prison on these charges?
Since 1999.
So 22 years? 20,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
22 years? All right. Tell me a little bit about your educational background. I understand you dropped out in the 10th grade. Did you ever get your GED or high school equivalency?
No, sir. I never have.
Okay. Have you ever worked on it?
One time I did, but due to the jobs I've been having here, I'm not trying to make no excuses. I work a lot and I'm really hands-on more towards things in schooling, but that's something I am going to do.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about what happened here. I've read your application. Did you fill out that application?
Me and my mother, yes, sir.
Okay, because it sounds like a third party wrote it. It talks like Jason did this, Jason did that. So
Right.
I'm going to ask you then to tell me in your own words, what's the reason you're in prison right now? Tell me about the crime you committed.
Well, I'm in prison right now for being at the wrong place at the wrong time and making the poor decisions that I made and the involvement I had in the murder of Mr. Larry Balderas.
Okay. Now, so you do agree that's what was written there. You helped write that. Tell me what you mean by being in the wrong place at the wrong time. So tell me what was happening.
I should have never been at that ballroom that night.
Well, I hear all of that.
Right.
But you were involved. You drove the car. There was apparently going to be a dope deal. A man was killed. You then go to a bar full of blood and just have drinks and such. So tell me how it is you were in the wrong place at the wrong time about this. So tell me, in your words, what your role was.
Well, I drove the car to the spot. I let the man out the car. The man got beat up pretty bad. I mean, I played a role. I was there. I mean, I'm just as guilty as the next man. We drove the car to another ballroom where we went in that ballroom. I mean, yeah.
So tell me, I mean, as I read your application, I get the impression that you don't believe you should be in prison.
Oh, absolutely not. I definitely believe I belong in prison.
Okay, well, tell me about that and why.
Because I was involved in a homicide.
Okay. You knew there was going to be a dope deal. You drove the car to this secluded area.
Absolutely right. I'm just as guilty as the trigger man, which it wasn't a trigger man, but I'm 100% guilty as the next man.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you actually waived the jury trial. You went to trial and you had a judge trial.
Yes, sir.
Did you testify?
No, sir.
And the judge found you guilty of second-degree murder.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And it's your position, you didn't do anything but drive the car?
Pretty much what I did.
Tell me about some of the programs that you've taken while you've been in prison. Which ones do you think have been the best for you?
Probably victims awareness.
Okay, tell me about that.
Well, it just makes you realize your actions and things you do, how many people are affected by it. not only this person, the victim's family, my family, me. It's just, it's horrible.
What other programs have you taken? What about Thinking for a Change? What did you get out of that?
Thinking for a Change, helped me really think and be responsible and own your thing, own things and listen to people when they talk and understand why there's rules set in place, and rules are for a reason, even though at the time you don't think rules matter. I mean, rules are here, laws are here for a reason. Definitely helps.
Tell me about the work that you've done there. Are you currently assigned to the dog pen?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that and tell me how long you've been there.
I've been at the dog pen since 2015. I lay trails for the bloodhounds for human scent. I take care of the dogs. I maintain all the chase equipment, the four-wheelers, the lawnmowers, the weed eaters. We cut grass. We go on outside calls for floods and different things. We do sandbagging, and pretty much whatever's needed, they call upon us.
It's a pretty highly trusted position, right?
Yes, sir.
Tell me a little bit about your artist work. I've read your report. I've looked at all of the things you've done. Tell me, did you learn that? Did you have that when you came in? Tell me how you got into the artistry work.
Well, I've always had an eye kind of for painting and different things, and I picked it up in prison, really. I learned to paint cars on the street from my father, but in here is where I picked up the artistry and started painting, and I donated a lot of paintings to Our Lady of the Lake Children's Hospital for the kids and different things like that.
And you also do carpentry work? You build things?
Yes, sir. I can build rocking chairs.
Tell me about what you've done with that.
I can build furniture and rocking chairs. I've also donated that stuff to Our Lady of the Lake. I'm good with my hands.
Okay. Now, I've read the report. It sounds like you've come from a very good family.
Yes, sir.
No real issues in your family as you were growing up.
Right.
Tell me about how you got together with Mr. Marullo that night. How did all of that come about? Let me say this. I'm very pleased to hear you accept responsibility, because as I read your report, I didn't get that impression. Okay.
Right.
So tell me how y'all got together that night and what have you learned from that experience? You're 43 years old or 42 years old. If we vote to let you out, you're going to be back out in the streets at some point.
Right.
So I'm interested in knowing how you're going to avoid what happened that particular night.
How I'm avoided is, the main reason is I'm not the same dumb, mature kid I was back then. I'm educated in different things, and I've learned to think and listen to people. And like I said before, abide by rules and laws. And I'd never put myself in that type of position again. I'd choose my friends wisely and surround myself with positive people doing positive things.
It sounds to me from reading the report that it appears that Marullo was a drug dealer.
Yes, sir.
Were you involved in that as well?
No, sir. No, sir. I just met the guy.
That night?
No, sir. A few weeks, maybe a month or two prior, he had moved to my mom and dad's neighborhood that I lived in from New Orleans. And he had a motorcycle and a Mustang, and so did I. And we got to talking and became friends. He wasn't like a long-time childhood friend. I just met the guy, really. I didn't know much about him. I wouldn't even say he was a drug dealer, but he had dibbled his hands in the wrong things.
Tell me a little bit about your disciplinary history. Understand you've had 5 write-ups, is that right?
Yes, sir.
And the last one was in 2012?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What were those write-ups about? Do you remember?
I think the last one was a dirty magazine they found at my job. Playboy magazine.
Okay. And prior to working in the dog pen, what work did you do before?
I worked in the laundry at Camp J as a trustee for several years.
Okay.
I also worked in the kitchen as a baker. I can bake pretty good and cook.
How long have you been a trustee?
I believe since 2008 or 9.
You have law enforcement opposition. There's nothing you can do about that.
Right.
You have a lot of victim opposition. There's a lot of letters, a lot of things have come in and talked about that. What would you say to the victim of this man's family if you had an opportunity to talk with them?
I just like to apologize to them. There's nothing I can do or say to bring back their family member, but I'm so remorseful and I'm sorry. I grieve with this every day of my life. I gotta wake up and remember that and see that man's face. It's just a nightmare. And I'm so sorry. I don't wish this upon nobody.
Warden, could you tell us anything about Mr. Mathis?
As he's said, and you've asked questions of him, he has worked his way up to one of our 15 offenders that we keep up at the dog pen. And he's been there since April of 16. So as far as being a trusted offender here on the farm, yes, sir, he's right up there with the top. He continues to do good work for us.
Great. Thank you, Warden. Madam Chairman, that's all the questions I have at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. I don't see any other questions by my colleagues, so I would ask for staff to introduce the guests.
Okay, first we're going to hear from the aunt, Belinda McGovern. I'm sorry, she's not speaking, I apologize. We'll hear from Miss Liz Mathis, the mother, who will be speaking.
Good afternoon. I am Jason's mother, Liz Mathis. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, hi. Yes, good afternoon, judges and board. I am Jason Mathis's mother, Liz Mathis. Thank you for allowing me to speak on my son Jason's behalf. That late night in January of 1991 changed the lives of two families forever. Jason lives with those tragic events and the mistakes he made that awful night every second of his day for 23 years and will continue to his last breath. He knows that those tragic scenes and will plague his conscience forever. Jason has recognized and owned up to the events of that night. He has shown an enormous amount of the remorse and sadness towards the Balderas family. He apologizes wholeheartedly to all of you with an aching heart. Jason's record at Angola State Penitentiary has clearly demonstrated that he will not disappoint us. We know that he will strive to be his best. As parents, we are forever grateful for his peers that believed in him and trusted in him greatly. They have reinforced what we as parents taught him as a young boy: integrity, generosity, forgiveness, and most of all, his faith. My family and I thank you all for giving him that time. We pray that the board will render a decision in favor of Jason being granted clemency on this day. We firmly believe a positive influence and asset Jason will be to society. We offer our sincere condolences to the Balderas family, to each and every one of you. Thank you and God bless to all.
Thank you. And we'll hear from Steve Mathis and his patient brother.
Hello, I'm Steve Mathis, Jason's older brother. Everybody can hear?
Yeah.
We learned at an early age that hard work and good education was important, whether it be college or vacation. This was necessary to survive and support our family.
Sorry, board, he's too upset. I'll continue for him. We learned at an early age that hard work and a good education was important, whether it to be college or vocational training. This was a necessity to survive and to support our family. I was fortunate enough not to get caught up with the wrong crowd. Lots of young men have made very stupid mistakes at that age that have life-changing consequences that they must live with until their very last breath. My brother Jason has had 23 years to think about Mr. Balderas and his family. He lives with the images and sounds of that night constantly, never going away. His heart is full of sorrow and shame for the choices he's made. He knows there's no redoing of that night. It's his burden he will carry forever. One second, please. I'm trying to turn the page. I have all the faith in the world that my brother will do his very best in what he chooses as his career path. He will have a huge group of supportive family and friends that will be there with him as he acclimates back into society and family. And we will make sure that Jason is enrolled in a GED program immediately. We will stand by his side until he completes it. We will mail a certificate to the board showing that he's completed the program. We will hold him accountable in every way. We are proud of the mature man he has become and has shown an enormous amount of remorse. We know that he will comply with all parole provisions that will be set forth for him to live by. We are eager for Jason to re-enter back into society. We pray that the board votes yes in his favor. We will all be there to embrace him when he steps out of the gates. May the peace of the Lord be with everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we'll hear from Miss Bridget Boyd, family friend.
Good afternoon, and to the board, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak before you this afternoon on behalf of Jason. I have known Jason Mathis and his family since the early to mid 1990s. And during time spent with Jason, I always found him to be a very polite, honest, and kind young man. He was always willing to help whenever needed. And Lord knows he's helped my immediate family on numerous occasions. And I know that he would be willing to help anyone at any time. I have never, ever seen Jason act disrespectful or aggressive towards anyone. That's just not the Jason that we know. Jason's conviction and subsequent sentencing to Angola over 20 years ago was a shock to all who knew him or know him. Nevertheless, Jason has served his time with positivity, and he has taken advantage of numerous opportunities to better himself. He's never been an extremely academically studious person, but he's had a lot of vocational hands-on training before entering prison and while there. As you may know, and as we've heard earlier, some of those accomplishments in prison included tedious work with metal and steel to create intricate artwork. Shortly after he was incarcerated, he sent my husband a belt buckle, knowing that my husband is an avid outdoorsman, and the belt buckle was of a bass. And I have never seen anything so beautiful in all my life for somebody that just picked up that type of artwork. It was amazing. We hold that very dear to us. He's also done carpentry, as we've heard, woodworking, painting, and dog training. And I honestly believe that these trades that Jason acquired over these past years, as well as his prior extensive experience with auto paint and body work, small engine repair and mechanics, as well as home and business remediation work that he did with his father, are going to give him ample and tremendous opportunities to have gainful employment when he is released. Jason will not be back to prison. We are faithful that he will be an outstanding member of society. Additionally, Jason has a huge support system. He has a wonderful family, as well as many, many friends. And we are all dedicated to helping him to move forward with his life and to holding him accountable for all of his actions. I would also like to mention to the Balderas family that nothing I say here today
Ms. Boyd, I need you to, can you please conclude your statement?
I'm sorry.
Can you please conclude your statement for us?
Okay. Nothing that I've said here today is meant to take away from the Balderas's loss. But we know that Jason has had many, many years to reflect and to think about that night in 1999. And he is very wholeheartedly remorseful for being in that situation that night. And in closing, I respectfully request the board to have sincere consideration in granting Jason parole. I honestly feel that he deserves a second chance, and I know without a doubt he will prove to be an outstanding member of society. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Ms. Van Horn, I'd like to ask Jason for his statement at this time, and you close it out for us if you'd like.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
All right, thank you. Jason, is there a statement you'd like to make to wrap it up for us?
Statement towards the board.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to just say I'm sorry for all the harm and the damage I've done to everybody, my community, my family, the victim's family, and everybody else. And I'm truly remorseful.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Van Horn?
Yeah, I would like to make a few comments. Can you hear and see me?
Yes, ma'am.
I know, because I've sat through several of these, and I know y'all know that somebody who is not changed and has not been changed by the prison experience talks about what he has been through. He very seldom refers to what the victim has gone through or any remorse for the victim. When he seemed to be hesitant about admitting his part in the crime, I was very concerned that maybe when he had told me wholeheartedly that he knew that he was at fault and that he deserved to be in prison, I didn't know whether he was communicating that to y'all speaking in front of you. But I think with your experience doing this, you know that you very seldom see sincere, remorseful tears for the victim. And I have to say that in my 30 years of doing this, that's the first time I've really believed it when the defendant said his heart was breaking for what the victim's family has gone through. And I know that there's a lot of pain in that family. And I know that they don't want to see him released. But I think we have to go to what kind of society we are. And we are a society now with all the diversity that's been embraced. And I speak from a woman who, when I started as a DA, had to wear stockings and high heels or the judge wouldn't let me in the courtroom. And I'm proud to say that that's changed and that it's the voice that speaks, not the clothing on the person, that's heard now. And it's not about the way things appear, but it's about the way they really are. And I think this man is proven to y'all that he's sincerely sorry. I think that you have to look at the fact that he is going to be embraced by his family. He will not be allowed to get into trouble, but more importantly, he will have a job. He will have a place to live. He will have a place to worship. And if he can make any sort of retribution to the family, I'm sure he will. He doesn't try to say that he was just driving the car. I know it sounded that way, but this man truly understands in his heart that if he hadn't been there, it might not have happened. And I think that's a big deal. I ask that y'all consider what he's learned and who he is. And I don't think he's going to be a threat to society. I don't think we're going to see him again. And I look forward to the recommendation of the court. Thank you. Of the board.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I think that concludes our proceeding. I think the board is ready to vote. We'll start with Mr. Marabella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Mathis, I appreciate your comments today and talking with me. I do have a concern about your acceptance of responsibility. I appreciate what you said today, but I've read all your report and you said again, wrong place, wrong time. You were convicted by a judge after hearing all of the facts, and he concluded that you were a principal to second-degree murder. And that's not just driving the car. And I know your lawyer said you think more than that, but reading everything, I'm not sure that you're there yet accepting responsibility. You've come a long way, and I appreciate that. You've accomplished a lot of things while you've been in prison. There's no question of that. You're very highly regarded. You're in a position of trust there at the dog pen. Your talents have gone to help a lot of people. You've talked about the art that you've donated to various charities. No question, that's a wonderful thing that you've done. You are a low risk. You do have absolute law enforcement opposition, and you've got a lot of victim opposition as well. So it's my responsibility here as one member of this board to make a decision. I appreciate the fact that you have at least discussed with me your role in this case. You were convicted and you stand convicted legally of second-degree murder, which carries a life sentence. You're 42 years old and you've been in prison only 22 years on a life sentence. That's a concern to me, I have to say. The warden speaks very highly of you. You've got good family support. You've come from a good family. Taking all of those things into consideration, my vote today is to grant a commutation to 99 years and make you, my vote would be to make you parole eligible after having served 25 years. That would be my vote, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Ms. Jackson.
I struggle, excuse me, I struggle for reasons is, Mr. Marabella, I'm not convinced that you've come to terms with your role in this murder. You know, you were the vehicle driver, but there's some indication that the victim may have been run over. And it doesn't seem to make sense that somebody else would be behind the wheel when that happened. But you have accomplished a lot. I am also concerned that you've only served 22 years, and that may seem like, when I say only, I don't discount the fact that that's a long time, but you know, we just had a gentleman been in prison for 58 years. And so for me personally, I don't think even 25 years is sufficient for the nature of the offense. So my vote today would be to deny.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Mr. Wise.
You know, Mr. Mathis, I kind of know a little about where you work at up there and what you do in that area. There's somebody has a lot of trust to be working where you're working out there. You stay over there at night. You're not always locked up every night. You stay there in that area. You take care of things. So somebody's got a lot of trust in you where you're at today. So today, my vote is going to be to grant commute you 99 with a parole eligible after 25 years. Okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Mathis,
Yes, sir.
you're a young man. You were convicted by a court of law of second-degree murder. I too are of the opinion that 22 years for a conviction of second-degree murder is insufficient time served. You have multiple members of the victim's family opposed. You have law enforcement opposition. For those reasons, I'm going to deny your request.
Mr. Mathis, my vote today, although you know what the outcome is today because you got a split vote. But I would support you today. Yeah, I agree that you've held a position of trust for a while. And I don't believe you're the same person you were that many years ago. So my vote today would be to recommend commutation of your sentence to 99 years with parole eligibility after serving 25 years. However, you've received 3 favorable votes, 2 unfavorable votes. So the outcome of today's proceeding is that your application for clemency has been denied. Good luck to you. Reapply when you can.
Thank you.
Stay the course.
Well, that is certainly interesting. Are you surprised? We have seen people that I think have done, more involved, have had worse hearings and gotten denied, but I'm not sure. Let's just go over the facts and let me know what you think. I mean, I guess he was kind of trying to not take so much accountability, and that's usually the problem. You don't want to go in with that strategy, that approach is going to backfire. So let's go over the facts. On January 22nd, 1999 at 3:30 a.m., Royce Campbell was riding his bike to Bailey's Casino. On the way there, he discovered Larry Balderas, who was badly injured and lying in the middle of Old Genitalia Road. Thereafter, Royce Campbell called 911. On the morning of the incident, Holly Smith was working as the bartender of Treasure Isle Tavern in Haynes Boulevard. During her shift, the defendant, Jason Marullo, that's the song, right? Entered the hip hop artist, entered the bar and spoke to Charles, then the defendant and Murillo into the bathroom together. So they went into the bathroom together. Smith sent her in after them because she thought it was suspicious for the 2 men to go into the bathroom together when there were only one stall. However, only after a few minutes, the defendant and Murillo exited the bathroom. After ordering a beer, Smith asked the 20-year-old defendant for identification, and he produced it. The 2 men then resumed conversation, and Melanchon, after noticing blood on both the defendant and Murillo, Smith asked Murillo what had occurred. Murillo responded that he'd gone into a bar fight at another bar. Smith also noted that she found it odd that both men were wearing the same shirt. I don't know. How is that going to tie in? In addition, she stated that the clothes produced at trial were not the ones worn by the defendant at the night of the crime. Melanchon said that the defendant and Murillo entered the bar, and Murillo said, "We killed somebody." Wow, that's smart. Go in the bar and announce it to the world. The defendant said, "You better not tell anybody." After following the defendant Murillo into the bathroom, saw them take all off his shoes and wash the laces. Then they stated they had killed an old white crackhead. "We beat him to death." When asked how they knew the victim was dead, the defendant said, "I ran him over with my car." There you go. Was that, who said that? Was it Miss Jackson? I mean, you have statements like this and things that are brought up at the court, and then all these years later, he goes there and really doesn't hold accountability. I agree with it. I agree with the denial. You gotta take accountability. Then they saw blood on the defendant's arm, forehead, and his legs from the knee down. In addition, the defendant was trying to wash the blood off the sink. He really made it out to be like he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. That's just how it felt to me. After exiting the bathroom, he asked if he wanted to buy any Pepsi Cola. However, he refused. When they learned the next day day that the victim actually had been beaten to death. He reported his knowledge to the police. He also stated that the clothes produced at the trial were not those worn by the defendant at the night of the crime. Officer Joel George was the first one at the scene of the murder. When he arrived, he saw blood on the ground and on the victim's shirt. He also found a bloody $20 bill and a Louisiana identification card. The forensic pathologist, Dr. Alvaro Hunt, stated that the death was caused by a massive hemorrhage on the surface of the brain. He also found that many wounds on the victim's face and hands. He could not testify that the defendant had been run over, but said that the injuries were consistent with the defendant having been dragged. The victim also sustained broken ribs, which is consistent with having been beaten. Detective Brian Adams also went to the scene and saw a blood identification card and a piece of scalp with hair on it. After learning that the victim had been an employer of Tower of Pizza on Dowman Road, he went over to the restaurant while he was at the restaurant trying to assess the victim had been doing in the hours prior to his death. He ran into Melancon. Detective Adams also went to the bar where the defendant Marullo had been the night of the crime. He searched the bar and found the bloody shoestring and a bloody cloth towel. After discovering that the victim had died, he obtained an arrest warrant for Morello, but not the defendant, since he did not know the defendant's full name. After receiving a telephone from St. Mary Parish Office deputy, he went to the defendant home to interview him. The defendant was advised of his rights in front of his mother, father, and an NOPD officer. Therefore, the defendant made a statement which recorded later played at the trial. All the defendant's home, his parents gave Adams a set of clothing, and the defendant said that he had been wearing the night of the crime. Officer Adams also confiscated the vehicle for the family shop and clothing worn by the victim. From his investigation, Adams concluded that the struggle had taken place in three locations. The initial spot where there were scuff marks and the money and identification were found. Second, where the body had been launched, and third, the victim had dragged himself before being found. Officer Joseph Tefaro, who is a blood and hair comparison expert, said the blood in the clothing given the defendant's parents. He found blood and cloth taken from the defendant's vehicle, but tests were inconclusive as to the blood type. Officer also found 2 hairs in the victim's body that were consistent with the defendant, suggested that there was some type of physical contact between the defendant and the victim. The defendant called Michael Beals, who testified that he grew up in the defendant and that he knew Morello through friends. He said that Morello showed up at a barbecue on Saturday after the crime and asked him to take him out of town because he thought that he might have killed a man. Beals said that Morello told him that he had run over the man with the car and that the defendant had pulled him back into the car. Further, Morello told him that he did not want to talk about the incident anymore. The defendant's brother, Stephen, said that Morello called him at 2:30 a.m. on the Saturday following the crime and asked him to take him out of the state because he had attacked somebody and run him with the defendant's car. Morello told him, "Your brother didn't do anything. I just I just need to get out of here." The brother said Morello told him that he tried to sell the victim drugs, that he attacked the victim, and the defendant pulled him back into the passenger seat, and that he climbed over into the driver's seat. Stephen Mathis declined to get involved and told his parents about the incident the next day. The defense called Michelle Wigington into the defendant's girlfriend. She said the defendant was very intoxicated when he came to her house early on January 22nd, 1999. After arriving at her home, he went to sleep in the spare bedroom. Then he washed his clothes because they smelled of smoke, and her parents did not allow smoking in the house. The defendant told her he met Morello in the Bimini Bay and gave him a ride to New Orleans, where they went to a bar. As they were leaving, Morello talked to a man who got into the car. They drove to a location where the man got out of the car, after which Morello got out of the vehicle and started beating the man. The defendant got out, pulled Morello off the man, and pushed Morello into the passenger seat. Morello jumped into the driver's seat and ran over the man. The defendant then got into the car, and after going to the bar, went home. It's just so senseless, evil, and just insane. Jerry Hirsch, who worked for Mathis Family Body Shop, so the defendant's father originally bought the car to fix it up. At the time, perhaps before the trial, Hirsch repaired the windshield of the car, which appeared to have been in a bad wreck. The windshield was full of blood and hair and were blood stains. Wow, okay. On the inside of the car. The defendant's father said the defendant came to him and his wife Saturday morning at 11 a.m. The defendant was in a panic and crying, and the entire family was upset. The following morning on Sunday at 1 a.m., the family received a call from the detective looking for Morello. At that point, they decided to call St. Tammany Sheriff's Office. The defendant cooperated with the investigation. The defendant's father said for the first time that he saw the car was when it brought it to the shop where he worked and prepared an estimate for it. He determined the car was totaled, but later brought it from the owner. He said at that time the windshield contained hair and blood. That sounds like he could have gotten, I mean, I wonder why there's hair and blood on the car. The defendant's mother said that he had told her that he'd been Murillo had being a man. He told her that the man had gotten into the car to buy narcotics. Murillo then hit him in the head with a beer bottle. The defendant pulled Murillo off the man. Murillo got into the driver's seat and ran over the man. The defendant feared the man was dead. The mother knew Murillo was facing a sentencing for a stabbing the previous Mardi Gras, so when authorities called looking for him, she assumed it was concerning the previous incident. Oh my gosh, the guy's just like, so his co-defendant was a pretty bad dude. When he asked if he was when he asked if that were the case, the detective said the authorities were looking for him concerning a murder in New Orleans. At that point, she knew the victim was dead. As she told authorities that her son had information concerning the crime, she said the family had cooperated with authorities and deputies and told the defendant should be charged with being an accessory. The defense called for character witness to testify the defendant's nonviolent nature. So it is interesting. So his co-defendant was very violent. He was wanted for stabbing. You know, it could be that maybe he wasn't maybe he was scared and he drove away and ran him over versus no, but we also have this statement that he said he ran him over intentionally, right? I mean, there's one thing to unintentionally run someone over and then act really dumb after the sentence and try to hide it. And then there's another to run him over, but he was given a life sentence. And I'll tell you what, man, and I'll put this link in the description. We have seen so many vicious crimes, and this one is, of course, vicious, but it doesn't seem like one that should have gotten life. And it also doesn't seem like one where he should have not gotten a commutation. We're just, in my opinion, I mean, it's just different. It's awful and it's terrible and he needs to be locked up for a long time, but it still seems different. But if you play devil's advocate and if you think that he intentionally, maliciously ran him over and then denies that involvement, you tell me. I mean, they did beat a man. He was involved in it. Whether he intentionally ran him over or not, no, I guess on second thought, the bottom line is they beat a man severely, left him there to die. And he did run him over. And the windshield, it was broken, covered in blood. It wasn't like it was obviously clear that something very violent had happened. So no, he could have called you don't just leave him in. No, it's just as bad. It's just as bad. And he needs to admit his culpability. Okay, I came to my conclusion. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Thank you, Richard, for tying this all together.
You're classified as a first felony offender. Your DOC number is 120453. You're here requesting a commutation of your sentence. You were sentenced in February 1988 to life at Natchitoches Parish for a second-degree murder conviction. Mr. Latchy, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Answer Mr. Roche, please.
Mr. Latchy,
Yes, sir.
can you tell the panel, and if you can't, I will understand. Can you tell the panel just briefly what happened to cause you to get convicted of second-degree murder?
Well, I was singing in a gospel group. I love gospel. And the people that I was singing with, they kind of set me up by the being in my lowest state at the time. They played on my understanding. For me to stay there, I was the lead singer and they didn't want to lose me.
Mr. Latchy,
Uh-huh.
Tell me about the crime that you were convicted of.
Okay, he was coming at me to my house. He had come to my house arresting me. And told him to stay away. He said he was gonna stay away, but he didn't. And I was out there standing in front of my house with the door open, watching I think it was 7 o'clock gospel preaching. And I heard some roaring coming around, but I didn't pay no attention because my mind wasn't on no evil, nothing but the TV. And he was coming dead in with his car hollering about, I told you I'll catch you outside, I'll kill you. And so I jumped back and I had the gun that his wife had brought there. So she said, saw prowlers and stuff. And somehow I got it out of my pocket when I jumped back and the car hit right where I was standing there. When I started shooting, I just went out of my head.
Okay. I want to let you know that you have overwhelming opposition. You have opposition from the judge in the 10th JDC. You have opposition from the district attorney's office, and you have opposition from law enforcement. Three of the victims, three members of the victim's family, answered and sent in a statement. 2 of those victims are unopposed and 1 is opposed. Can you recall any of the programs that you completed during your 34 years of incarceration?
100 hours, anger management, 3 days, St. Jude, several more. I can't remember, but it's got several more.
Let me get to that part and maybe I can help you out. You belong to the Concept Club, is that correct?
I think so.
You belong to the Concept Club, is that correct?
Yeah, sir. Okay.
Okay. And you took substance abuse, is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Because most of your arrests before being arrested for second-degree murder was for intoxication. Is that correct?
Intoxication? I don't remember.
Okay. Were you intoxicated the day of the crime?
No, sir. Not drinking. No.
Okay. I see that you enrolled in the literacy program. Have you finished literacy and have you started working on your GED?
I was taking the test. Other words, I taking tests to get the to come to taking the test of the GED, but my eyes got too bad. And it would make me sleep. So I failed it, I had to stop.
Okay. Now, you're 72 years old.
Yes, sir.
If you release, what would be your transition plan? How would you support yourself and where would you live?
Well, I don't have nowhere to stay because my family is all gone when I come up with it, dead. And so I don't have nowhere to live. And I would preach if a chance I did. I am a preacher.
Okay. I see where the classification office is working on a place for a transitional house or some halfway house that would take you. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Would you be staying in Louisiana or would you be leaving?
I'd like to stay in Louisiana.
Okay. Let's talk about your disciplinary record. You had a very hard time transitioning to incarceration. Is that correct?
Well, it's been hard here.
I see where you had 18 disciplinary write-ups in your first 22 months of incarceration. Is that about right?
I don't remember, but,
But do
Okay.
you remember that you hadn't had a write-up in the last 32 and a half years?
it's been a long time I ain't had one.
And I'm gonna tell you when. May 30th, 1989.
Okay.
May 30th, 1989, some 32 and a half years ago.
Uh,
What was responsible for the major turnaround where you had 18 write-ups in 22 months and you hadn't had a write-up in the last 32 years?
Well, because I worked in the field, and back then, it was very hard working in the field. But when I got made trustee, I was able to avoid that kind of treatment. So I did my best in work everywhere I worked at, and that's how and I was obedient and respectable. And that's how I avoided it. I was working, doing whatever they tell me to do.
Mr. Latchy, I'm going to go over some of your programs. I've got to that part in my presentation. I see where you were baptized in 1991. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you've got a lot of courses with the American Bible College. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you took a substance abuse program called Comprehensive Offender Program Effort.
Yes, sir.
And that was with Alcohol Anonymous, and that was in 1995. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And you also took one in 1994. You completed 100 hours pre-release in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
Anger management in 2009. And social orientation club, 1999. CPR. Have you ever had an occasion to use CPR after you were trained?
No, sir.
You have a long list of achievements in a lot of faith-based programs. What did you get out of the faith-based programs?
Well, how to treat my neighbors, and how to be helpful to and how to be go by status in business and stuff like that, and helping each other, stuff like that.
Do you remember taking a program called Move Beyond the Past?
I don't remember, sir.
Making peace with your past?
Yes, sir. I remember that one.
So you've taken a lot of programs. Tell this panel this afternoon why you think we should vote to commute your sentence.
Well, I've been down here most of my life. I'm an old man. I'm sick, and nothing, nobody to help me. A family is all gone, and I'm alone. And I believe that they should have a little mercy on me, and I hope it would. I mean, I always try my best to do my best, and I'm sorry for the crime that I committed. I ain't trying to deny it because I was young and weak, but I had to vote for mercy. That's all I know.
Thank you, Mr. Latchy. I appreciate the conversation. And Madam Chairman, that completes my interview.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. I don't see any other questions by my colleagues, so we'll hear from the folks that have joined us in opposition. First, we'd like to hear from Jessica Smith. You have to unmute your microphone, ma'am.
Is it okay if I pull over right quick before I speak?
Yes, please do.
Okay, thank you for waiting.
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
I would just like to say that before recently, I really didn't know Mr. Lachey. I just remember him as a kid, and that's just very few. But over the last couple of years, I have come to know the person that he is now. I write to him often. He writes back. The only thing he ever talks about is things about God, you know, and how he's doing, about his health is always very positive. He's very uplifting and encouraging, and I try to be the same way to him. I often wonder what it would be like to have an opportunity to actually just, you know, ask some questions or just find out why, because, you know, growing up with all this, it makes you angry. It makes you wonder, like, you know, what happened, because your dad is not there. He didn't see you graduate from high school. He didn't see you when you received your first bachelor's. He didn't see you when you received your master's. He didn't get to meet his grandchildren. And to top it all off, you know, this was a person that I thought was a man of God at that time. So, you know, it was quite confusing. But I found forgiveness, because we're all commanded to forgive. Who am I to hold that against him? I don't know all the details that happened, and I never will. But the most important thing is it'll never bring my father back, no matter what happens. So I just simply choose to forgive and accept him for the person that I know him to be, which seems like a pretty honorable person. And that's all I had to say.
Well, thank you, Ms. Smith, for taking the time to share those remarks with us. We appreciate your input. We'd like to hear from the DA's office.
Okay, Mr. Harrington is here as the district attorney, and he's gonna.
Okay, thank you.
Lean down so you can see me. I was actually here today to oppose, but in listening to you, we were unaware that there two of the Mr. Smith's family were unopposed, and Miss Jessica Smith is apparently unopposed, and we would support their positions.
Well, thank you, Mr. Harrington. We appreciate you. We appreciate your input today. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Ma'am?
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Lachey, is there anything else you'd like to say to us this afternoon?
No, no, ma'am.
All right, I think we are prepared to vote, and we're going to start with Mr. Roche.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Lachey,
Yes.
I'm going to just give the reasons why I'm going to vote this way. The first reason is the statement just made by the victim's daughter, which means a whole lot to me. She's forgiven you, and she sort of took no position, and she wished you well. Your age, you're 72 years old, and you have serious medical issues. You have a low risk assessment, and you have positive remarks from the staff. For those reasons, I'm going to recommend to the governor that he commutes your sentence to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility. Good luck.
Thank you, Mr. Roche. Mr. Marabella.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Mr. Latchy, I've listened to all of the things that you've done. I agree with Mr. Roche. I do want to commend Ms. Smith for her courage and compassion to speak today and to tell us what she believed. We oftentimes get mad at DAs that come in here and sometimes try to tell us what to do, but I appreciate Mr. Harrington very honorably coming in and saying, look, I'm here to represent the victims in this case. And if that's their position, that's what I want. So I do appreciate that, Mr. Harrington. It is, my vote would be the same as Mr. Roche. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Marabella. Ms. Jackson.
All right, Mr. Latchy, for the same reasons as my colleagues, your age, the amount of time, your good institutional record, and a lack of victim opposition, my vote is to recommend commutation to 99 years with immediate parole eligibility. Good luck.
And Mr. Wise.
At this time, I'm going to vote to grant and with commute your sentence to 99 with immediate parole eligibility. But I'm going to tell you this, what we're doing today, all that does is make you eligible for your parole. You're going to need someone with you this where you're going to have a residence plan. Because if you don't have a residence plan or somewhere to stay or a care home or something, it's going to be your parole is not going to, it's not going to be good. You're going to have a residence plan or somewhere you're going to live. I just want to tell you that right up front. That's if the governor was to sign this. Okay?
Yes, all right.
And I want to commend the victims today. And Mr. Harrington, you get a little cool air up there in Natchitoches? All right. Thank y'all.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. All right, Mr. Latchy, you received 4 favorable votes. So we'll make the recommendation on your behalf today that your sentence be commuted to 99 years and that you be immediately parole eligible. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harrington. And Ms. Smith, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, just gotta do the right thing sometimes.
Yeah.
So I don't have any information to unpack on this hearing, but I thought it was important to show because we do really see what played out today, and that is the victim of the child, the daughter of the victim, saying that she was okay with him getting out, and then the DA actually showing up, and that's the interesting thing to me is that I've always, it's like I have a theory that the DAs in the parishes where the DAs don't show up, I have a theory that those DAs only show up because of some kind of pressure outside of Randy, where it's like it's just a blanket policy. But I wonder, it doesn't seem like the DA communicated with the victim in this case at all, and that was an interesting perspective. So they decided to show up to make a statement about how it should be released, but then they pivoted and said, hey, we represent the victims, we're not. Now he's clearly in very poor health. There's a part that I edited out because it was like about 8 minutes, and this hearing was so short to have 8 minutes of him talking about his health conditions, but he's deteriorating very rapidly, and that probably has something to do with it. You'd wonder why the parole project isn't involved in this, but he, according to his record, he is out. So apparently he had his parole hearing, unless he got some type of emergency medical leave or something that we haven't heard of, because usually we'll cover the parole hearing. This took place in 2021, and we're pretty good at getting all the records, but we don't see it here in my docket. Actually, what am I saying? We do have him 8/16/2023. Hold on a second. Well, looky here. Good old Richard did track it down. It is in the spreadsheet. He did have that parole hearing. It took place 8/16/2023. So I should have I should have searched it before I spoke. I spoke too soon. And he has even in the notes that we had this initial commutation hearing. So my bad. I should never have doubted Sir Richard. We'll just watch this. What I assume is a procedural type hearing. And the parole project is there. So, hey, I shouldn't have doubted them because this is certainly one of the, I think, ideal scenarios where the parole project makes a lot of sense, right? So let's jump in and go through the process.
All right. MacArthur Latchy, DOC number 120453. You're a first class offender. Parole eligibility date 3/2/2023. Good time 12/8/2036. Full term 10/7/2086. Second degree murder charge, 99 year. Your sentence was commutated to 99. Commutation of sentence 99 years on second day of March 2023 by Governor Edwards. Does that sound correct?
Yeah.
How old are you, Mr. Latchy?
73.
How many years have you been incarcerated?
37.
37?
Yes, sir.
And I see where you had a lot of hospital stays. What do you have going on?
Well, I had a stroke and right eye went foggy on me.
Okay. Are you and I see you're in a wheelchair. Do you walk?
Well, sometimes my leg gives out.
But can you walk around if you need to?
I can walk.
Okay, you can walk. So you normally walk around if you need to go somewhere. You can get around.
Yes, I know.
Well, tell me, did you graduate from high school, or do you have a high school diploma, or do you have a GED?
No, I graduated from the 80s and 90s. I quit. Then later on, we took Northwestern, got all the basics first to college.
What kind of classes have you been taking while you've been in there?
Well, I've been doing this. I've been going through these programs, like CPR and faith-based and alcohol anonymous, code. Well, she got the rest of them last week. I don't know what's on. She didn't see a copy of that.
Right, I got it. Well, tell me just briefly. Tell me about the crime. It's a pretty significant crime you committed here many years ago. What was happening? Were you what was going on?
Well, he told me he was coming back and kill me, and then he came back and said he just wanted to drag my name up down the road. And I told him, I said, let's stay away from my house. And he said he would, but he didn't. The one day I was standing there, when I was standing out there drinking some coffee, and I had a sister that, to take care of around the house, because I had 2 kids there going to school. And I moved the picture before we get out of school, and I put it in my pocket, just standing out in front of my door, in a flat, in an apartment. And I get some road coming over, and there was 2 cars coming. I didn't know there was him, but he told me to stay with. And he come and get in to me. I told you I'll catch that side out there, kind of run over with the car. So I hit some old side pencil with the pistols, and I put it, and I just blinked and went to shoot him. He was trying to keep me with the car.
Now, did you have alcohol or a drug problem back then?
No, sir.
None?
None.
Were you working?
Not at the time.
What kind of work did you do?
Well, I used to work at 40 years, National Forest, Coca-Cola Company. I went to Northwestern State College for and I preach and sing. And, you know, another little job in the farm.
What have you been, so is that what you've been doing since you've been incarcerated? What you've been doing since you've been incarcerated?
But when I got out of the field, I started driving tractor. I couldn't grab to the tractor. And I then, couldn't do that no more. They put me wiping and shining the brass shoulders, you know, till I got sick.
Are you a trustee?
Yes, sir.
How long you been a trustee?
Since 1996.
So what's your plans if you were to be released early? Where are you gonna go and what you gonna do?
Well, I'm gonna stay with my niece, Leslie Latchy. And, if I'm able to do some kind of work over here, and that, I just have to depend on my security.
Okay. All right, Warden, you got any input for us on him?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Joe Buttress, Assistant Warden. He transferred to Hunt in May, almost the end of May, to our assisted living unit. We opened an assisted living dorm a few months ago, and he did transfer to us from Angola to reside there. He's been there since. As you can see, he is in a wheelchair. He's no trouble. Has not been. He's just living with our other group of geriatric inmates, in this environment. But nothing to speak of. He's got a low tiger risk score. He was in a medical dorm at Angola. I do see in his record. So, he's been living in a medical environment for a period of time. So.
All right, great, thank you. Now we'll hear from Andrew Hundley.
Thank you, Andrew Hundley, representing Louisiana Parole Project, confirming that Marcarthur is a client of our organization. If he should be released, his initial reentry plan will have him coming to our transitional housing in Baton Rouge to complete phase 1, where we will assist him with his initial needs, give him some living skills, life skills classes to help him adjust to his transition on the outside. And once he completes phase 1, he will be moving to Natchitoches to live with family, where he has an excellent support system based on his great disciplinary record and all he's done during these many years of incarceration. We feel like he's an excellent candidate for release, and we'll be there to support him and provide case management to him for a minimum of 1 year after his release. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now I hear from Tiffany Flournoy.
I'm an advocate for Mr. Marcarthur Latchy, and I've been advocating for him for the past couple of years. I do support his release and believe that he can be effectively released back into society. He has a strong support system, like Hundley mentioned earlier, and I also believe that he can heal there with his family. In communicating with him over the last years, I've been able to witness his remorse for the crime, his correction, and his rehabilitation. So I strongly believe that he can be an effective and positive member of society. And along that journey, upon his release, then I'll be there every step of the way to assist his family in supporting him and continuing to help him walk his faith walk into freedom. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now, Ms. Tashinda Latchy.
Yes, sir. As family, we are supporting his release. We will be supporting him mentally, physically, and financially, helping him regain his health and his strength back as well.
All right, thank you. We also have Thomas Latchy and Leona Latchy that are just here to watch. Just wanted to make a note of that for the record. All right, Mr. MacArthur, would you like to make a statement on your behalf?
Nothing.
Okay. All right, down fair to vote. I'll vote. I vote to grant your parole today. Looks like you hadn't had disciplinary right up since '04. You've been a trustee for a long time. You've done a lot of good work inside. I would release you to the Louisiana Parole Project, and so they can follow you, get you some transitional housing, and move on from there. That's my vote. Ms. Jackson?
Mr. Latchy, mine is the same. You've done well. I don't think you pose a threat to the community. You have a good support system. So I vote grant your release to the Louisiana Parole Project.
Ms. Renata?
Mr. Latchy, I do agree. My vote also is to grant for the same reasons. Good luck to you, sir.
Three votes to grant your parole. Your parole's been granted. Good luck to you. And we'll adjourn at 8:37 at lunch. Thank you, Warren.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Well, there you have it. Went through the whole procedural process of getting the commutation hearing, the governor granting, then the procedural parole hearing, and then the final grant. And as far as we know, he's still out. He's still alive. And it is what it is. It's pretty crazy when you think about how you can accelerate from all the way to now. Really spent his locked up in prison, not to spend the final days with his family. And we'll move to the next hearing. I don't really have much more to add, but let's go.